All right, welcome along. My name's Bosh. This is Bosh's Ableton Beginner Bits. And this week, I'm going to be giving you my top 7 drum tips. So I'm going to build a drum kit from scratch. And as I'm going to explain each of these 7 points, things that I just think are super important when you're building drums. Now, these are not just for dub and reggae and dubstep. These can apply to any genre, in my opinion. So I think this is a good all-rounder for anyone who's just started using Ableton and wants a few more tips on how to make your drums sound a bit better. Before I get into it, I always have to tell you about buymeacoffee.com/BoshDubs. You can go there and support this channel for the price of a coffee. But what is always more appreciated than that is channel interaction. Like, share, subscribe, comment, watch old videos, all that kind of business helps in the algorithm to help get this channel to more people like you who might want tips like this. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the first thing I want to address is how many channels you use while you're making your drums. So the first tip is separate channels. Now, the temptation can sometimes be, depending on how you work, to just load in a drum rack. Where is it? And then just put all your drums in there. Now, the reason that I think it's a lot better to do this in separate tracks is so you have a lot more control of the level, the volumes, effects, processing, anything like that. You're not having to get too messing around trying to route things to certain places. If you've got your kick, your snare, and your hi-hats and whatever else all on individual channels, it's a lot more freeing to be able to edit each one of those channels and make changes as you go. So what I'm going to do is rename this kick, and then I'm going to duplicate it 4 times. Let's do 3 for now. And then I'm going to rename this one snare. I'm going to rename this one hats 1. Okay, so that's the first tip. Always separate your drum channels. Now, what I'm going to do is very quickly just pick out a kick drum. Okay, we need to get rid of that. Samples. I might actually fast forward through me picking a drum. I might go for one of these natural kicks because the kit itself isn't the point of this video. Snare. Let's just try one of these for the sake of it. Like I say, the point of this video is not that it's going to sound good. It's so I can give you these tips. Hats. I'm going to cut up this loop into 3. All I did was control and click to move that. And we're going to do this one. Let's do this. And this. Okay. All right, so let's build a quick drum loop. Zoom in and get this down to, let's get it down to here we go. So I'm going to do Control, Shift, and M. And then I'm going to duplicate this across the 3 tracks. So I've got 3 1-bar long MIDI tracks. Let's loop them, Control and L. And then let's build a loop. So we need a kick here, snare in the middle there, and then I'm just going to do 4 of these hats. Okay, so that's the first tip covered. We've got our drums on individual channels, and I'm just going to show you how it makes it a lot easier. Yeah, so you can see I can apply effects to each instrument without having to mess around and send hi-hats, because you can do it in one drum track. You are able to do that, but I just think this is way easier. So that's tip number 1 done. Number 2 is snare variation. So what we're going to do here is just put in another snare, maybe with an effect on it or something, just to add a little bit of variation to the loop. So we're not hearing the same thing over and over again. So the first thing I need to do is highlight all these, click on one of them, Shift, click, Control and D to duplicate. All right, let's expand this loop as well. So let's play this. Okay, so it's already a bit boring. We already know what's coming. Kick, snare. So the snare variation in this channel, let's go back to snares. Let's pick something random. I mean, like really random. Let's go all the way down here. So let's put this in. And then on the second time that we see that snare, we're going to add this extra one. So I can lower the volume. Just realised I've not at the mic. So it's just a slight variation, but it just gives you that little extra something to listen to. What else I'm going to do is, let's just do a delay for now. Let's just keep it simple. All right, so there we've got that's another tip done. Snare variation, that is tip number 2. All right, let's go for number 3, hi-hat layers. Now, this is another really important one. What I like to do is instead of putting hi-hats all in between each other on one channel, I like to build up multiple channels of hi-hats. So we've got the simple loop. All right, and the first thing we're going to do is just copy and paste that. Yeah. We can get rid of these because we don't need them. I didn't really need to copy and paste that. I could have just, I could have just made a new track, but here we go. So you want a fresh channel with a new drum rack, and then what I'm going to do is find some other hats, but something different, something quite a bit different. Maybe something really short. Oh yeah, that's quite short. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing, just to highlight a section. Control-Shift-M gives us a MIDI track. And then I'm going to let's see. I'm going to draw these like this. Let's do that. Let's see how that sounds. Duplicate, play. Okay, let's turn the volume down. All right. And already, that's another tip done. Hi-hat layers. So we build up hi-hats. Instead of having the hats all in between each other on one channel, layer them up, build them up. We can lower that down even further, really. All right, what you could do is another one. So I'm going to do the same thing. Delete those and delete the hat in there. Now let's look for one more hi-hat, but let's go for something a bit loose. Oh, okay, let's try this. Interesting. Okay, same again. Oh, get rid of that. Drag a bar, Control-Shift-M. And let's try putting one of these. Let's loosen these right out like that. Let's see how this does. Okay, I don't really like that. It's not really matching with the thing. Let's do that and then that. And let's see how that sounds. No, it needs to be a bit more on the thing. Don't really like that hat. Oh, maybe that. It's got a bit of verb on it already. All right, so you've already there, you've got 3 layers of hi-hats, and I just think layering up like that makes it sound a bit more natural. If a drummer's playing hats and then they're playing another cymbal on top as well, they don't stop playing the hats when they play the other cymbal. So I just think it's good to layer up those hats. So that's tip number 3 I'm going to leave there, layering hats. Tip number 4, sticking with the hats, we're going to look at velocity. All right, so in each one of these, we can vary the velocity a little bit. So let's just, I'm going to just solo the hats and play around with them. So expand this a little bit. Let's just listen to our hat. Okay. Now, while these are playing, all I'm going to do is go down to the bottom here, and then I'm just going to lower a couple of these. So you can see how the first bar differs from the second bar, or you can hear how that differs. Because 2 of those hats are quieter, it gives it a bit more of a feeling, not a swing, but like it just gives it more of a groove and more of a feeling, rather than it just being ta, 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 like ta, 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 ta. So it just, again, it adds variation, it adds feeling to the groove that you're trying to create. So let's do the same on the next one. Okay. What I might do with these is put the first velocity up and then keep the second one down. So we've got a descending velocity. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, again, so you can hear the difference. Let's do it with these. These might not need so much attention. So I think just that one. And I might do this. Okay, now let's listen to all these hi-hats all together and see what adding these velocity changes, sort of what sounds, how it works and how it sounds, basically. It might sound terrible, but let's see. Oh, I forgot to copy these over. All right, so there we go. We've got a bit more variation. Let's listen to the whole thing. All right, that's sounding way better than when it first started out. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is what I would call 2-bar variation. And it's a concept that I try and stick to when I'm creating sort of drum loops that are using a lot of the same elements, but I'm trying to keep it varied and keep it mixed up. So 2-bar variation just means we're going to create some kind of variation in this loop every 2 bars. All right, so let's increase the size of this a little bit. I'll tell you what I'm going to do as well. I'm just going to reduce the size of them. All right. Now, so this drum loop, what I want to do is have 2 bars, and at the end of that 2 bars, I want to have a little change. And all I'm going to do is put a kick there. Take everything, shift, click, Control and D, bigger loop. And then at the end of this 2 bars, we're going to change something. So what I'm going to do is put a snare there as well. Get rid of that kick. And let's listen. Now, one thing you might notice is the rules I'm using here. The first one, the snare variation one kind of covers this 2-bar thing. So at least every 2 bars I've got a variation. So what I'm going to do is take out the changes that I just made. So then I'm going to make a variation. Now let's do one here. And then Control, Shift, copy everything. And then at the end of this section, let's do that. And let's, on the snare, let's do this. Let's do some variation changes on there. And let's see how this sounds as an 8-bar loop. I'm going to make it a 16-bar loop. Do that, and then we'll put here. Right. Okay, good. What I might do here is take out them, and let's just see how that sounds. Actually, no, let's go back and let's match those up. Okay. Let's listen to this 16 bars. So, again, it's not sounding sick, but it's got enough variation in it that it kind of keeps it interesting. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is rolls and fills. Now, this kind of plays into what I was just talking about, variation. But these kind of occur less often. So I'd say your rolls and fills, you'd kind of want to put, again, every 8 bars, every 16 bars, something like that. And you can literally just draw these in. So let's get rid of this off kilter thing. Right, yeah. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, let's get rid of the delay. Yeah, my snare's not great, so that roll doesn't sound great. I would pick a different snare for this, but I'm just trying to show you these tips. So yeah, rolls and fills, just get them in wherever you can. I would say also do the opposite as well. Cut out things. So if you want a little break, you know what I mean? Cut out. You could do something like that. Yeah, just anything that's a little change to the ears and keeps it interesting. Okay, the last one is crash and impact. Now, what I always like to do with my drum loops is kind of put in risers and fallers, crashes, impacts, things like that, just to signify the start and end of a bar. So I'm going to quickly drop one of these in. So let's just go to drum kit. No, I don't want drum kit. Cymbal, crash. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, I don't want that short one. Let's put that in. Whoa! All right, let me just pull that down a bit. And then what I'm going to do is take another crash, reverse it, and put it at the end. Okay, so take this one, same track, reverse. Where's the reverse function gone? Here it is. Okay, reverse that. Let's zoom in. What I want to do with this, just so that we take the reversed initial hit of the crash out, I'm just going to go to the biggest part of the waveform, which looks like it's about there. Drag that to the end, and then let's see how this sounds. Okay, I want a bit less of that, so let's take it to about there. Now, something else I might do sometimes is put a shorter crash in between them. So let's see if we can find something a bit shorter. That'll do. Now that's going to be loud, so I'm going to reduce the volume of that quite a bit compared to the other one. Something else you can do with these, if you don't like how long the crash is get your echo. And yeah, just put on an effect like that. Okay. Right, let's see how this whole loop sounds together. Yeah, and I think that's all right. That, again, it doesn't sound perfect. I'm just using this video to kind of show you the concepts of what you could do. I would not be using both those snares. I don't like the sounds of them, but it's just a quick video to get you into it. So they are the 7 tips. I'm going to quickly go through them because I've written them down on this handy piece of paper. Separate drum channels, always important to keep your drums on separate channels, so it's a lot easier in the long run to add effects and change, manipulate different things without having to affect the whole drum kit. Snare variation, I think, is really important. Not the best example that I've given here, but you just kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Have different snares throughout the tune, so we're not hearing the same thing hitting on halfway through every bar. Hi-hat layers, again, another really important one. Pick different hats. I would say find something with like a very snappy short character. Find something a bit more like a shaker, and then maybe like an open hi-hat or something. Just different sounding hats, layer them up and build your patterns so that at points you've got different hats all hitting at the same time, and other points you've just got single hats on their own. I just think it really lends to the feel and the groove of the track. Velocity on hi-hats, very important, the velocity. If you're getting a bit more advanced, you can look into having the velocity control different aspects of your instrument. So the velocity could go towards the filter or anything like that. I might do that in another video. That's a good idea I'm going to write down for another video. But yeah, the velocity is really important for hats. 2-bar variation, it could be 4-bar variation, but the basic concept of that is have something change every 2 bars. Even if it's just a little variation in the pattern, something like that every 2 bars, just to keep the listener interested. The longer you can make that loop and have it not feel like it's repeating over and over again, the better. Especially considering this is dub and this channel's aimed towards dub and dubstep and stuff. It's drums and it's bass. Everything else is just extra stuff. So if you can keep those drums interesting, you won't have to do as much work later on trying to make the tune sound varied and mixed up. Next, rolls and fills, which kind of comes from the variation thing. So put little drum rolls in there, little fills, take things out. This rule's kind of just another method of variation. It's just adding little rolls and things like that. Again, just to lead you into the next bar to add variation. And then the last one is crashes and impacts, whooshes, things like that. I've only done a basic example here, but these things it's another thing that signifies, right, we've moved on to a next section or phrase, or we've started the phrase again. And yeah, that's it. That's my 7 tips. I'm going to play this drum loop one more time, and then I'm going to say goodbye. Yeah, and that's it. I'm going to leave that there. That was my 7 tips for making drum loops. And that's it. My name's Bosh. This has been Bosh's Ableton Beginner Bits. I'll see you next time. Ciao.